Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about authoritarian social media because honestly, it should be a privacy warning to us all. Now, here's what's going on. This is coming from Reuters as well as many other publications, and here we go. We are talking about Weibo or Weibo. This is China's equivalent of Twitter, and they told their users today, Thursday, that they would start to publish their IP address locations on their account pages and when they post comments in a bid to basically combat quote-unquote bad behavior on their platform. Now, this move, posted on Weibo's official account, garnered over 200 million views and was obviously widely discussed, with some users obviously not a fan of this as the perceived reduction in their online anonymity. And that is not perceived. That is actually true. You are losing anonymity by having your geolocation via IP address published. Now, others, though, actually said that they were supportive of this in light of, as what they were talking about was COVID-related misinformation. Now, if you didn't know, Weibo has over 570 million monthly active users, and they say that the IP addresses would be displayed under new settings, which came into effect Thursday and cannot be turned off by users. Now, for users in China, the platform will display the province or municipality where they are posting from, and those that are using the platform overseas, it would basically have the country that the IP address is coming from. So I'm sitting here in Chicago in the United States, and so if I was using Weibo, I basically would look like I'm just coming from the United States as opposed to Chicago. If I was in China, it would be a lot closer to where I am. Now, these settings are designed to, and I quote, reduce bad behavior such as impersonating parties involved in hot topic issues, malicious disinformation, and traffic scraping, and to ensure the authenticity and transparency of the content disseminated. That is according to the notice. The notice also says, and I quote, Weibo has been committed to maintaining a healthy and orderly atmosphere of discussion and protecting the rights and interests of users to quickly obtain real and effective information. You will note the term privacy is not in that notification. Now, the effects of the new rules were already visible underneath the actual notice that they published, as thousands of user comments started to carry that extra label with their province or municipality as well as their IP address. Now, last month, Weibo said that it would basically begin testing these settings on some users in response to misinformation relating to the Ukraine-Russian war. China, if you didn't know, and I've talked about this multiple times, tightly controls its internet, and in the past year has been stepping up efforts to quote-unquote clean up the internet. Chinese social media sites that fail to censor critical content face financial sanctions as well as temporary suspensions of service under current Chinese law. Weibo has been on the receiving end, for the record, of many of these fines in the past year, frequently publishing notices about its efforts to combat bad behavior online, including posting the names of accounts that essentially have been punished. It's not publicly addressed, though. Instances of accounts being suspended or banned for merely expressing dissenting opinions, such as supporting Ukraine or criticizing Russia, not to mention things like Free Tibet, etc., etc. And so here we are. Now, I can understand essentially from a transparency mode, if you are trying to give users essentially an identity here and say, yes, this person is from this area, and essentially they are, impersonating somebody else. Nobody wants misinformation or disinformation spread. We've seen the damaging effects of what that happens, but there are other things to consider here as well. So first things first, we can have anonymity and unique IDs on the internet thanks to platforms, identity platforms like Human ID, if they are integrated. And I've talked to, actually, interestingly enough, about them in the last few days because, quite frankly, they seem to be the solution for these things. But if these are integrated, we can have this. The other problem that we have here is publishing IP addresses basically can point criminal hackers in the direction of where that person is sitting. Basically, you're seeing the front end of my firewall, or if it's a mobile phone, you're seeing my actual IP address off my phone that my cellular provider is essentially giving me. That is a huge, huge cybersecurity concern. Not to mention the fact that China polices absolutely everything. They know where their users are, what their users are doing, what they're saying, all these kinds of things. And so this is not stepping over the line in any which way, shape, or form, but it should be a harbinger, any which way, shape, or form for China, I should say. But for here and the rest of the world, it's obviously a harbinger. And that is a huge problem, because if we are starting to, let's say, see a rise in authoritarianism and they are taking over governments, this might be the model that we see here in the internet in non-authoritarian countries that could potentially turn authoritarian. Combine that with, let's say, the public IP address that I've got on my cellular phone that now is susceptible to attack because you're finding me for whatever reason, that is a huge issue. So I'm not a fan of this. If I were basically a member of Weibo or Weibo or whatever, however it's officially pronounced, I would probably not have an account. There you go. I understand internally that the Twitters and the Facebooks of the world see my IP addresses, but they're not telling everybody else. And that is not just for my privacy. That is for my cybersecurity protection. That is a good thing. So I think this is a bad move. I unfortunately think that this is essentially a testing ground for what a lot of authoritarian countries are going to look at and say, hey, if they can do it, we can do it. And China has been very happy to help their allies that are authoritarian figure out and implement these kinds of things. They taught Vietnam how to do this. Why not another country in the West they align with? That is a huge problem. This is why we're discussing it. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter, where you will not see my IP address, but you'll get a whole bunch of information out of me, or at least Facebook and Twitter will. Or feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. Same deal. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.